Hello, you're watching Tri Vibes TV. Welcome to another weekly training video where I'm here to talk through all the training I'm doing to prepare for Ironman Texas coming up in April of 2026. In today's video, I'll talk about how last week's training went. We'll take a look at the training on my plan for the week ahead, and we'll take a look at the Garmin health and performance metrics that we've been tracking over the past couple of weeks. So let's dive right in with last week's training. Overall, last week's training was another step in the right direction. I definitely feel good about the first few weeks of Ironman training. Taking a look day by day, we started out Monday. I had a short swim in the morning, also did a 30-minute easy run. I also went to yoga on Monday. So 3 workouts on Monday, but all of them at a really nice sort of easy pace. I think my run was probably one of the slower ones lower heart rate, that was it. 131 average heart rate, so definitely kept my heart rate nice and under control on that run. Nice yoga at the end of the day. Moving on to Tuesday, got the morning started with my strength training. I've been doing this WUCAR competition or out of competition. It's supposed to be like an off-season strength training plan, and I'm really enjoying it so far. And I think Tuesday's workout was some deadlifts and a few other movements that I've been working on. And, I think overall, I'm really happy with the strength training that I've been doing. So off of that strength training, went straight into a bike session, which was basically the same workout I had done the week before, 30-second sprints. And I think the highlight there is that I was a little bit higher on my power target for those. So I believe I was right around 375 watts. So I'm up around 375, 380 for those, which was about 10-15 watts higher than last time. Got those all done. Got that zone 3 session at the end done as well. I believe my average was a little lower, 254, and I got the run done as well. The previous week I had skipped the brick run, been a little bit nervous about running so many days in a row. So Tuesday was my 4th day in a row of running. I ran Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then also did the brick run on Tuesday, and actually felt pretty good about that. However, I was not really prepared mentally. I don't know if I physically would have been ready. I had a run on my plan for Wednesday, but I decided that since it would have been 5 days in a row of running and I had just completed 4 days without any issues, I'm still sort of rehabbing into running more frequently. I had a TFL injury that slowed me down for a couple of weeks over the summer, and actually more like a couple of months really. So I got the blessing from my coach to skip that speed session, and I'm hoping that I can pull that Wednesday run session off this week though. So again, just try to take things slow. Skipped that run, but also did a swim on Wednesday, so it wasn't just like an off day. Did 1,800 yards in the water. So Thursday had a circuit training in the morning. It was like 5 rounds of 5 movements. I had goblet squats, kettlebell swings, single arm kettlebell press, bent over row, and dead bugs. So went through that circuit, 10 of each, 5 times. So that was a pretty good session. Went out on the road and really enjoyed an hour of easy riding on the tarmac as opposed to doing the ride here on the trainer. I really wanted to get out on the road this week after spending many weeks doing just indoor training, and I was able to get my front wheel situation. I tried to get my front tube fixed, replaced the nozzle on it. Went out for that ride on Thursday. I really enjoyed it. Friday, just a swim, 1,800 yards in the morning. Spent the rest of the day relaxing, prepping for Saturday's 10-mile run. I think that the 10-mile run I'll spend a little bit of time talking about because it's not only the longest run I've done since July, but also it's probably one of the more enjoyable times that I've run 10 miles, period. And I can't quite put my finger on why that's the case. On Friday night, I remember having a feeling before bed at like 7 p.m. I had this weird sort of idea that like I could go run 10 miles right now if I had to. Like I felt like I had it in me to go run 10 miles like the night before, which is kind of strange. I don't often have thoughts like that, but I just felt like this confidence. Not that I would be ready to go in the morning, but that I could go right now. Like I could go right now and do it. I don't know if that helped with my mindset on Saturday morning or not, but I started off and just tried to take things nice and easy. I think I ran the first 2 miles a little bit slower than my easy pace. So yeah, 8:22, which for reference, my easy pace range is right at 8:15. It's where it starts. So just a little bit slower. But my average for the entire run ended up being just about 8:05. Average heart rate of 151, which is super solid. That's like very low zone 2 heart rate. And I felt great. Like even the last 2 miles, I remember feeling really good. I was thinking about how at Ironman Texas, I would be coming around to see my family and friends at our tent at about mile 10 because we're at like the 2 mile mark on the course. And so you'd go 8 miles for the first loop and pass them once. And then the 10 mile mark, I'd be seeing them again. And I just had this sort of, this thought process while I was finishing up the run that like, if I could get to that point in the race feeling as good as I felt right now, then that would be just a huge leap forward than how I felt at the 10 mile mark at Ironman Texas last year. I was really suffering at that point. I had been suffering for like 2 hours at that point on the run. And yeah, just, lots of positive thoughts. Finished that run off feeling really good. That led me to do a little extra credit strength training. There was a pull-up bar right near where I parked. I sort of parked there specifically because it's a pull-up bar that I can actually hang from and my toes leave the ground. I'm not super tall. I'm 6'1". But most of the pull-ups that I do are on bars that like I have to sort of pick my feet up. I have to keep my knees bent a little bit. Like I can't fully hang from most pull-up bars. But this one I could, and I did nothing too crazy. This was again after 10 miles of running. I wanted to do some pull-ups and push-ups. I did 4 sets of 5 pull-ups with 10 push-ups following. And I got through all of them. I could tell just by doing those full hangs that I was maybe using a little bit more muscle than I normally would. Like it felt a little different, but it also felt like better. I had a moment where I was like, man, I wish I could do pull-ups like this all the time. This is the right way to do it. Anyway, a little bit later this will become important because a little bit later in the day, I started feeling a little bit of discomfort in like my armpit on my left side. And it really started bothering me. And I felt like maybe those push-ups and pull-ups were a little bit too much. And it started to sort of spiral into this idea where I'm like, this is going to suck tomorrow morning on my bike ride. And so that being said, my bike ride yesterday on Sunday was one of the toughest rides that I've done in recent memory. It was rough. I started out the morning. I went and did a 45-minute indoor spin. So I started out at like 6:20 in the morning. I wanted to try to get some riding done before the sun came up because I had a 3.5-hour ride to do with a 3-mile run. And I thought even if I can get a half an hour done and cut that 3.5 hours on the road from 3.5 down to 3, that'll help. I was really determined to get out on the road, and I saw that it was pretty windy and it was a little chilly, but so I knew it was going to be windy, but I couldn't have really expected. I don't think I should have. I don't know if I could have known how hard this ride was going to be on the way back. So did the first 45 minutes indoors, nothing too crazy there. Just about 200 watt average for 45 minutes. Got on the bike, and the first hour, 10 minutes was fantastic. Shot out and rode all the way from Webster down to 288 and a little bit further to a gas station down here. And while I was heading out, I had some moments where I was cruising like 26 miles per hour at 200 watts. And I know from experience that that's a pretty strong sign that you're riding with a tailwind, right? Like if you're going a lot faster than normal at an easier effort, like as much as you'd like to think, or as much as I'd like to think sometimes, I'm just, hey, I'm just a really strong cyclist, or I had the right breakfast this morning, or no matter what, typically you turn around on a ride like that, especially if it's out and back, and you get humbled really quick by how fast the wind is coming as a headwind now. All right. So as you can see, this route that I did was it's not completely the same direction the whole time, but it's generally along with the direction that the wind was blowing. And I think the other reason why it can feel a little tricky is when you're going, even when you have that tailwind, it doesn't mean that you don't feel wind coming at you. And so I was sort of tricking myself into thinking that this is more of a crosswind, and I'm getting wind pushing against me while I'm heading out, so that wind will help me on the way back, and maybe the difference won't be too big between the wind on the way out and the way back, because you never really know. I mean, it's different every time. I've done this route 30 times. It's different every time. But this was the worst time. This was absolutely the worst time. So I averaged just under 23 miles an hour on the way out, flying. Average power 222, solid, like mid to high zone 2. Heart rate 138, which is like 10 BPM below my zone 2. So fantastic numbers on the way out. Great speed. Cadence up close to 90. And now let's take a look at the way back. So 22.7 miles an hour down to 15.3 miles an hour average on the way back. And if you see, the second I turned around here, it sucked a little bit here. And then as soon as I started going northeast, then it got really bad. And the more north I turned, the nastier it got. So like as the ride was progressing, as I kept making these turns gradually north, the wind got more and more and more like intense. And I was going along these stretches, very familiar stretches, and I've never had an experience quite like the one I had yesterday, where all of the vegetation on the side of the road is just flattening out in the opposite direction that I'm traveling. I've got trash and litter and leaves like flying up, flying at me head on. Like stuff is just like flying at me. It was blowing so hard that I could feel the visor on my aero helmet sort of buckling and pressing in on my cheekbone, which I have never ever felt in 3 years of riding with this helmet. So, I had to get all that out. It's almost like therapy in a way, to just try to explain how tough this was yesterday. So, that all being said, I think that the good news is that it didn't crack me. And I feel like early on I was able to just accept that it was going to be really tough. And I came on the other side of it like I felt like there was no doubt that I was going to be able to make it home. And sure, there were a few times where I fantasized about like calling for a ride, or maybe a friend would drive by and I would flag him down. I had a few moments like that. But it was more like just like something to distract myself. I never ever felt like the wheels fell off. I was able, when the conditions would allow, I was able to put out very similar power numbers to the numbers that I had in the first hour. I didn't have any issue where I felt like I didn't have the engine anymore. It just felt like man versus nature, and I wasn't gonna win. So I spent a lot of time up. I could barely ride in this aerodynamic position, and I know it sounds counterintuitive. If you got a headwind, like you have this time trial bike, right? You want to get down. Unfortunately, the wind gusts were so strong that I really didn't feel safe. I'm riding in the shoulder on a Sunday morning. People are driving like crazy around here trying to get to church and to the grocery store and all that stuff. It's just a level of riskiness I'm not willing to really be comfortable with, because getting blown around in that position is so much more dangerous than you don't have your hands on your brakes either. It's so much more dangerous, sitting up, having your hands on there. You have so much more control. You can sort of brace with the wind a little bit better. Unfortunately, the combination of feeling like I overdid it with those push-ups and then having to just wrestle the bike in that wind, I was really, really sore. Like that whole area was just so beat up. So, I think that the other takeaway from this ride is that it was 3.5 hours. I ended up doing way closer to 4 hours of time riding because it took me a solid 30 more minutes, probably 30. Well, let's see. It took an hour 45 to get back, and it took an hour 10. So 35 more minutes of just being exposed out in the wind on the ride back. So that put me much closer to 4 hours of total ride time. And I feel like this might be one of the hardest training rides that I do for this Ironman Texas build. So that being said, I can look forward to my 4-hour ride coming up next weekend and tell myself that the chances of it being more difficult than this last 3.5-hour wind fest that I had yesterday are pretty slim. Let's knock on wood. Hopefully next Sunday's ride is going to be, I don't want to say easier, I just want to say not as much nature to fight. So let's take a brief look at the week coming up. Not too much out of the ordinary here. Got a swim done this morning. I felt very weak in the pool this morning. That is totally expected after a training day like yesterday, because I did also run off the bike. I considered skipping my run because I had done so much longer riding, but in the end I decided I wanted to see how my legs felt. I did 2 miles instead of 3, so I chopped off 1 mile, and I'm really happy that I went and did the run. Averaged 8:30, low heart rate. And that was a huge confidence booster to feel like even after that brutal of a ride, I didn't break. I didn't mentally stop. I didn't give up. I had the legs. I could still put out the power. And I was able to run feeling pretty smooth off the bike, even with a 10-mile run under my belt from the day before. So huge confidence booster, as every week so far of this Ironman training has been a confidence booster for me. So moving on to this next week, I got the easy run done today, got the easy swim done this morning, hopefully going to get some yoga done tonight. Tomorrow I've got my strength session in the morning. I'm not 100% sure. I might end up having to skip my bike run tomorrow. I'm not sure. I'm taking my car up north to a mechanic, and I decided a while ago when I made the appointment that if I'm going to prioritize one thing, I'm going to make it going to the gym. I've done a lot of swim, biking, and running for the last 10 years. I've done plenty of that. I still am new to strength training, and I don't want to miss a strength training session. So I think I'm going to knock that out in the morning, go to the mechanic, and then I guess it's possible that I might do a brick run or a brick workout in the evening tomorrow, but I don't know. I don't want to commit to it. So we'll see. On Wednesday, I've got a 2x6 minute marathon effort speed work. Now that is my kind of speed work. That is slightly faster than easy pace for 6 minutes. That's what's up. Maybe my coach is listening to, maybe he adjusted that because he saw that I was scared of the tempo intervals last week. That's okay. Baby steps. Thursday, got a little bit of a long swim and an hour 40 easy zone 2 bike. That's what's up. I didn't notice that. And this is where the Ironman training, I think, is starting to get interesting, where even during the week, if I'm getting on my bike, it might be, no more of these hour rides. All right, hour 40 on Thursday. Let's go. Friday, I have it programmed as an off day. I may or may not keep that. We'll see. Maybe if I skip this workout, I might readjust that. Anyway, and moving on to Saturday, 10 miles. I'm ready for that. I was ready for that last weekend. Give it to me again. I'll do it. Going to go out to the trails and enjoy myself, hopefully, on Saturday. And on Sunday, the 4-hour Zone 2 ride. I'm going to go ahead and say some sort of baseline goals for that ride. If I can average Zone 2 power for 4 hours in any way, shape, or form, I'm gonna feel good about that. So, all right, 3 miles off the bike after 4 hours of easy riding. I think that all sounds pretty good. Quick look at the Garmin stuff here. As I mentioned last week, I had swung back up into productive training status. I've fallen from that. Unfortunately, I seem to have fallen into maintaining. So I've been maintaining since the 12th, so the last couple of days. I think I lost that productive status on Saturday, and then it's been maintaining on Sunday, and then as well today. HRV status. I went from being low to unbalanced to balanced. I had a couple of days of unbalanced. Now we're just barely hugging on this balanced green line again. It's been a bit of a struggle. I'm trying to get more sleep to accommodate this Ironman training that I'm doing, and so far so good. I have been getting more sleep and it has been helping. My exercise load slowly creeping up. We really got pretty high last weekend and then came down and peaked up again this weekend. And I think if we switch to this chronic load, you can see this orange line over 4 weeks is right here is where we started Ironman training. So you can see it's just slowly climbing up over 1,000. And I think that's a good indicator that I'm not doing too much too soon. Feeling pretty good, everything considered. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen to this today. I talked about that bike ride a lot, but it clearly had an effect on me. And maybe it will be the hardest training ride that I do in the next 18 weeks. We'll see. Something tells me there's going to be some other tough days. But that was one tough day that turned out really well. I also really enjoyed watching the Houston Texans win their football game. So overall, I really enjoyed yesterday. I'm feeling pretty beat up today, but it's all part of the process, and I am here. I'm committed in it to win it. And I appreciate you watching my video. So take a moment, if you have one, drop a like, put a comment. Love to hear your thoughts, feedback, anything you might have to say about the training or the content I'm putting up here every Monday. And I will see you next Monday in the next training vlog. Take care. Bye-bye.